Grok 4.5 costs $2 per million input tokens. Claude Cowork runs on a $20 a month subscription, and at high volume, that price difference decides your unit economics. These two tools are competing right now for your AI budget, so I'm putting Grok 4.5 versus Claude Cowork through 5 head-to-head tests to see who actually wins. The winner isn't who I expected, and the deployment test at the end is the one that could completely flip which tool you should pay for. My name is Brian, and I'm in these tools 12 hours a day, so you don't have to be. And every number in this comparison traces back to official vendor docs or independently published benchmarks both companies will stand behind. This one's built for developers and teams running high-volume API workloads, where the wrong tool choice burns real money every single month. Test 1. Cost. A solo developer pushing 500 million tokens a month through an API needs to get this right, because at the wrong price tier, that's the difference between a side project that's profitable and one that's bleeding cash before it gets any users. And that's the number you nail down before you write a single line of integration code. I pulled confirmed pricing from OpenRouter and the official Claude pricing page, and what surprised me is how far apart these two actually land. Grok 4.5 comes in at $2 per $1 million input tokens and $6 per $1 million output tokens, while Claude Cowork runs on a flat $20 a month subscription with no per token billing at all. And for high-volume API use, those are completely different cost structures, which makes Grok 4.5 dramatically cheaper at scale. Grok 4.5 takes cost, and it's not close. I'll be fair, the subscription model is competitive if you're a light user, but the moment you're pushing real token volume, $2 per million input tokens versus a flat monthly fee, is basically a settled question, and that puts Grok 4.5 up 1-0. Test 2. Coding benchmark performance. I know a lot of people push back on benchmarks, and I get it, but when you're running thousands of automated code tasks, a 15-point gap on SWBench Pro isn't something you can just wave away, because that translates directly to real bugs not caught, real PRs failing review, real time lost. What I found is that these two trade blows depending on which benchmark you look at. Grok 4.5 scores 83.3% on Terminal Bench 2.1 and wins SWE Marathon at 29% versus Opus 4.8's 26%. But Claude's Fable 5 leads hard on SWE Bench Pro at 80.4% to Grok's 64.7%. And on the Coding Agent Index, they're basically tied at 76 versus 77 points. Though keep in mind these benchmarks use different underlying Claude models, not Cowork directly. The honest caveat is that Claude Cowork is a harness. Its coding scores come from the underlying Fable or Opus model, not Cowork itself. So you're really comparing Grok 4.5, the model, against Claude's best models running inside Cowork. And with that framing, Grok 4.5 holds its own on long horizon tasks. But Claude's models pull ahead on the harder single repo benchmarks, and which one matters really depends on your task type. Coding benchmarks. This one's a tie. Grok 4.5 wins SWE Marathon outright and nearly matches Fable 5 on Terminal Bench, so neither side sweeps and no points change hands, which means the scoreboard stays at Grok 4.5 1, Claude Cowork 0, with one tied. Test 3. Speed. When throughput is slow, your automated pipeline stalls, your users wait, and you're burning more wall clock time per task. And at 1.9 million tokens per task average for Grok 4.5, the throughput number matters a lot more than most people factor in. I couldn't find any published throughput figure for Claude Cowork, just troubleshooting guides about slowness, which isn't exactly a confidence builder. While Grok 4.5 has a community-measured range of 56.5 to 80 tokens per second, with the vendor's own number sitting near the top of that range, so you've got a real verifiable speed number on one side and a blank space on Claude Cowork's side. Speed is a second tie, though I want to be clear it's a tie by default. Claude Cowork has no published figure to compare against, and I couldn't turn up anything official from Anthropic on this either, so we can't score a blank, and the scoreboard holds at Grok 4.5 1, Claude Cowork 0, 2 tests tied. Alright, so Grok 4.5 is up on cost and has a speed number on the board, but we haven't touched context, window size, or deployment yet, and deployment is the one that could completely change who you should actually pick, If you're building any kind of end-to-end workflow, stick around for that last test because it rewrites the whole decision. Test 4. Context and output limits. The day your model hits its context ceiling mid-task is a bad day. You're either chunking a 300,000 token codebase into pieces and stitching outputs back together, or you picked a model with a window big enough to hold the whole thing at once. And that choice ripples into your architecture, your cost, and how much babysitting your pipeline needs. The gap here is bigger than I figured going in. Grok 4.5 ships with a 500,000 token context window, which is 2.5 times larger than Claude's standard 200,000 token window. And while community reports suggest Claude Cowork's Pro plan may push up to 1 million tokens, I want to be clear, that's community reported, not vendor confirmed. So the verified number for Claude is 200K, and Grok 4.5's 500K beats it cleanly. Grok 4.5 takes context, and this one actually caught me off guard given Claude's reputation for long documents. But the verified specs say 500K versus 200K, and that's a real gap. So Grok 4.5 wins this one clean, and the score moves to Grok 4.5, 2, Claude Cowork 0, 2 tests tied. Test 5, Deployment and Modality. A solo dev trying to ship an automated research workflow on a Friday afternoon needs to know whether their tool can actually run the full job end-to-end or whether they're going to be duct taping API calls together all weekend. That's the real question this test answers. And it comes down to whether the tool does the whole thing or just hands the baton back to you. What I found is that these two tools are genuinely doing different jobs. Claude Cowork runs tasks in the background, can take over your screen, and works across web, desktop, and mobile on Mac OS, Windows, Chrome OS, Linux, and mobile. While Grok 4.5 is an API model that handles text and vision input, function calling, and code execution. But you're orchestrating it yourself, so Claude Cowork is the one that actually runs the workflow, and Grok 4.5 is the engine you plug in. Claude Cowork wins deployment, and I'll be honest, I thought Grok's function calling would make this closer. But background execution and cross-platform screen control is a completely different category, and Claude Cowork is the actual agentic platform here, which brings the final score to Grok 4.5 2, Claude Cowork 1, with 2 tests tied. Grok 4.5 wins on costs at $2 per $1 million input tokens, which is drastically cheaper than any Claude subscription at high volume. Wins on context with a 500K token window that's 2.5 times Claude's standard. Has published speed data at 56.5 to 80 tokens per second, and actually beats Opus 4.8 on SWE Marathon Long Horizon coding tasks at 29% versus 26%. Claude Cowork wins on agentic workflows. It runs tasks end-to-end with background execution and actual screen control, which Grok 4.5 just can't do. It's available on every major platform including web, desktop, and mobile. Fable 5 inside Cowork leads on SWE Bench Pro at 80.4% versus Grok's 64.7%. And the $20 a month subscription gives you predictable costs if you're not a heavy API user. The real power move is when neither tool alone is enough. When you need a model with Grok 4.5's raw context and cost efficiency running inside a harness with Claude Cowork's orchestration and platform reach, and combining cheap, high-context API calls with a true agentic layer on top is exactly where the industry is heading right now. If you need an answer in 60 seconds, for most API developers, Grok 4.5 is the pick. $2 per million input tokens, 500K context, and real throughput data. That's the tool you reach for when you're building and scaling fast. And you go Claude Cowork only if you need an autonomous agent that runs the whole job without you holding its hand. So know which side of that line you're on. If you want to see how this plays out on the web building side, I just put out a full breakdown called ChatGPT versus Lovable, which builds better websites. And it answers a really similar question about which tool actually ships the finished thing versus which one just hands you the raw material to work with.